It's Roval weekend, boys and girls. Oh yeah, boogity boogity. It's going to be a complete crapshoot, I suspect, in the NASCAR world. Going to have full coverage of the race, a full review and analysis. You guys know what to expect at this point in terms of some of the big races in NASCAR and my IndyCar coverages. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Look for that after the race. But now, it's time to talk about this week in racing. We start out with the worst kept secret in the IndyCar paddock, and that's saying something considering how many badly kept secrets have been in the IndyCar paddock this offseason. But Felix Rosenqvist, the Swedish driver for Chip Ganassi Racing, has been confirmed for Chip Ganassi Racing. He will take over the number 10 NTT Data Honda for Chip Ganassi Racing, and he'll be teaming with Scott Dixon, who of course is the current IndyCar champion. He takes over for Ed Jones, who currently previously held that seat. Boy, the words aren't working too good for me at the moment, but yeah, Ed Jones is out. And real quick about Ed Jones, that's unfortunate because I think a lot of us saw it coming, probably after his mistake in what was the second race of the season at Phoenix, putting it into the wall. A lot of people were getting Darren Manning vibes, and I think his fate was probably sealed when he crashed again at Indianapolis, and pretty much anything he could have done past that point wouldn't have been enough in Chip's eyes. And we also know that Felix Rosenqvist is probably one of Chip's top prospects. He tested him at the end of 2017 when Rosenqvist was in Indy Lights. And if you don't know who Felix Rosenqvist is, he's pretty much driven every open wheel or even high downforce car under the face of the sun. I mean, he's been in literally everything. You name it, he's been in it. Indy Lights, Formula E, LMP2, LMP1. I think he's tested Formula 1 cars before. I mean, he's done pretty much everything you could possibly do. And again, he's been very high on Ganassi's wish list. In fact, he was number one last year, and he couldn't get out of his Formula E contract. There was some sort of technicality there that kept Rosenqvist in that car for this current year, and then once he was out of that contract, suddenly he was available. Ed Jones didn't perform up to expectations, and suddenly Rosenqvist was in the seat. Ironically enough, Jones wasn't even the second choice after Rosenqvist could not drive. You notice I'm saying Rosenqvist a lot. I got to get used to it because it is a bit of an interesting pronunciation of a name. But the second in line for that seat was Brennan Hartley, and they actually had a contract signed with Ganassi, which then Toro Rosso bought out after he replaced, I think it was, I can't remember who it was. I think it was Kvyat maybe last year. I think he replaced Kvyat. Impressed Toro Rosso enough that they signed him, and they've signed him again for next year, I believe. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see where all these Ganassi drivers have gone. So Rosenqvist is very highly touted, and it wouldn't surprise me at all to see him kind of perform at the level we saw Robert Wickens perform at this year. I think he's got that good of a background and that diverse of a background, and clearly he's quick. Clearly everybody associated with him thinks he's quick. So you've got to expect that he'll probably be quick. The only problem, of course, is that number 10 Ganassi car just hasn't been on the pace of Scott Dixon really since Dario Franchitti unfortunately vacated the seat after his injuries in Houston of 2013. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes with Rosenqvist. And in terms of Ed Jones, there's speculation that the reason Carlin was open to bringing a third seat into the fold for next year is that Jones will have a seat there. Carlin was very closely associated with Jones throughout his Indy Lights days and actually throughout his upbringing in the European ladder system. So Jones, I think, is going to find a seat. I think it's going to be at Carlin. So you Ed Jones fans, you've still got a place for him next year. Of course, Carlin's kind of turned into the Ganassi home for the elderly. And hey, some positive NASCAR news. This is crazy to actually talk about, but there were some big silly season moves today that broke, and one of the big ones is that we found out who's driving the 31. Well, it might be the 31 car, it might be the 8 car next year, who knows. But it's going to be Daniel Hemric, who's replacing Ryan Newman at RCR. I think this is the best possible scenario for this situation. In my personal observations, I went to the Dover Xfinity race last year, And I think Daniel Hemric's genuinely one of the most talented guys in that series. He's really come into his own. He's really been driving well. I mean, let's not forget he made it into the Final Four of the Xfinity Series playoffs last year. That may or may not mean a whole lot to you. It doesn't really mean a whole lot to me. But when you look at the fact that I think he was the one car that wasn't a part of Junior Motorsports that was in that final round of the chase last year, that says something. Now, he wasn't able to necessarily compete for the championship last year. He might be able to compete for it this year. We'll have to see how it goes as NASCAR Xfinity heads down the stretch. But he's been impressive. In fact, in the qualifying session for the Cup race, which he's entered in a third car, I think it is, for Richard Childress this weekend, he got into the Q2 round of qualifying and was pretty much well ahead of Newman or Dillon in comparable equipment. So, yeah, he's clearly got some talent, and it's really great to see. I know I was kind of roasting them last weekend when I was like, well, how well do you know Pop Pop is kind of how you get into the seat. But it's cool to see Richard Childress Racing kind of reevaluate where they're going with their team. Obviously, Austin Dillon performs very well in big races, which helps them a lot from a perception standpoint. Certainly, the wins that he has gotten, the Coke 600 and the Daytona 500, are big wins for that team. So it's going to be good to get Hemric into that seat, because I think Hemric is going to elevate the level of the team. If he can help bring Dillon's consistency up, bring his level of driving up, I think it's really going to help that team going forward. And another positive driver signing, unfortunately, came at the expense of A.J. Allmendinger. Allmendinger will no longer drive for JTG Daugherty Racing next season in the 47 car. And replacing him is Ryan Preece, a short track driver who got a few opportunities in the Xfinity Series, was able to score a couple of wins, and really, again, is one of the hot prospects in NASCAR going into next season. And it's great to see him get a ride. It's great to see JTG Daugherty take a chance on a young driver. I think this is another positive thing all around for NASCAR going forward. This is a young driver who probably will mix things up. It'll be interesting to see how he works with Chris Buescher going forward. The two of them, I would imagine, would continue as teammates. I think Buescher's contract continues. So, yeah, Ryan Preece, again, very talented. He's shown a lot of promise in the Xfinity Series, particularly when there's no Cup drivers in that series, when he gets an opportunity in top-of-the-line equipment. It'll be interesting to see how their development curve goes. Certainly, Allmendinger has brought that team up to a very elite level on the road courses, but it doesn't really seem like they've really had a team leader to develop their cars for the ovals, and that's why they really haven't had a whole lot of a shot on tracks that are either not Martinsville, which is kind of drives like a road course in some respects, or the road course races themselves. So it'll be interesting to see if Preece can help bring up that development level for that team as well moving forward. It'll be an interesting thing to look at, and it'll be a great Rookie of the Year battle next year in Cup. And finally, this is probably what y'all been waiting for. Yeah, the internet kind of broke down. The NASCAR Twitter, the NASCAR Facebook, the NASCAR on Reddit, even though I hate to mention them. Yeah, they were all pretty triggered by this. The 2019 regulations were finalized for NASCAR going into next year. And yes, they're using a variation of the All-Star package. Now, if you watch this show regularly, you will know that I talked about this probably 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. It's been that long that this has been rumored. It was finally confirmed by Blake Griffin on a podcast, and later is solidified in gold by NASCAR. Now, this was a team owner vote. The team owner alliance has some sort of a voting power. Remember how making kart comparisons with NASCAR? It sounds an awful lot like kart. Again, maybe I need to make a video talking about kart, because I don't think a lot of younger fans know how kart operated. Suffice it to say, kart operated a whole lot like NASCAR does now, where the team owners would vote on what rules were passed and what rules were not passed, and they can make amendments to rules and stuff like this. So the team owners, on a whole, voted to run this all-star package. Now, what I did kind of talk about in the last video was that it's going to be a restrictor plate package. it's not technically a restrictor plate package. What they're going to be doing is adding a larger taper spacer to the car and essentially slowing the cars down that way. But ultimately, as quite a few people, I think Matt Weaver was one of them over on Twitter, said, is that essentially you're getting the same result here. And the same result is what I'm going to describe as, and this is something I saw on a forum. I can't remember what forum I saw it on, but I'm going to steal this because I think it's really apt. This is NASCAR's last gimmick. There's really nowhere else they can go unless they use Tony Stewart's 2009 Talladega suggestion, which is turn the cars halfway and go backwards, at halfway point, and then with 20 to go, you turn them both opposite directions and run into each other. Outside of doing figure eight racing or, anything of that nature, this is probably the last gimmick. This is the last thing NASCAR can really try to spice up their show. They've tried pretty much everything else. And the fan base has reacted. And they haven't reacted very positively. I know there are some. I'm not going to try to say that this is the entire fan base. I'm going to say it's probably 60-40. I think that's a fair assessment, at least from what I've seen. 60-40 negative towards this. Now, some people are saying that this is going to be good for the sport because it's going to be unpredictable. It's going to allow smaller teams to get up to the front. It's going to allow more people to be competitive. But you look at the negatives, and again, these have been pointed out by, all you have to do is go on YouTube and search NASCAR 2019 and lower the search results for this week, and you will see, I watched probably 4 or 5 videos from YouTubers that I watch ranting about this because it really has upset a lot of people, and you're going to see a lot of crashing, I suspect, especially on the one and now. What's interesting is that this has also been, it's unclear about how many tracks this package is going to be used at. A lot of people are speculating it's going to be used at the road courses and the short tracks. I'm not so sure. It seems like some places are reporting that it's only going to be on the 1.5 and 2 mile tracks, and 2.5 mile, I guess, if you count Indianapolis and Pocono. So it's going to be essentially used on what a person like me would consider a super speedway. Now, you probably also consider some of the shorter tracks intermediates, but when you start saying intermediate, some people consider Loudon an intermediate, so I don't know what that's all about. So let's just say super speedway. Bank tracks or, long flat tracks like Pocono and Indianapolis would use this package. I think that's probably realistically what we're going to see. And it's going to be exactly what everybody thinks it is, more than likely. I just hope nobody gets hurt. I think one of the keys to this as well, talking about the team owners, is that the team owners, and this is an interesting thing because I just talked about wrecking, is that the team owners, I guess, thought that they're going to save money by going with one rules package for the majority of the season, meaning outside the plate races, outside maybe the road courses and short tracks where you would build a different car anyway, that they don't want what they had in 2015 where they have 3 or 4 different aerodynamic packages. They have to build the cars differently. They have to build the engines differently if they've got a bigger tapered spacer or a restrictor plate on the car, at one track, and then they go to another track and they have to fabricate a whole bunch of different bodywork and all this stuff. The teams didn't want to have to do that, so I guess they looked at this and said, instead of all this development work, we're going to have to do all this wind tunnel testing, the shaker rigs, the engine building, the dyno time, all this stuff that they would have to do to develop essentially a different car for each track. They want to bring one car to the track each weekend, and develop one car for the majority of the season, and then I guess they'll pay for the sheet metal repairs when the big one happens. Again, NASCAR doesn't have a whole lot of places to go after this. Again, that's kind of why I brought up the last gimmick thing. And here's the other thing, and here's kind of the ultimate point. I think NASCAR maybe got the wrong impression, and I think that's what a lot of other people have pointed out by the social media reaction to the All-Star race this year, was that a lot of people said, wow, that was crazy, that was awesome, I really liked that. They didn't realize the reason a lot of people liked it was because it was different than what people had been seeing or treated to recently. That's why you're seeing so much positivity around the Roval race. Everybody's talking about how great it is, how much chaos there's going to be, how much unpredictability there is. And again, it's because it's different. What I'm afraid NASCAR is going to do, looking at what has happened here on the All-Star race, and they're already doing it, so I guess my fears are already confirmed, is that they're going to look at the All-Star race and they're going to look at the Roval, and the All-Star race was chaotic, exciting, all that good stuff. And I suspect the Roval race, from what we've seen in practice and qualifying, is going to be exciting and chaotic. NASCAR has looked at that, and instead of saying, wow, we've built an event here, we've built something special, we've built something that people are going to tune in on TV to watch, buy tickets to at the track to watch, and invest in. And they're going to say, you know what we need to do? We need to do that 36, or we need to try to make it happen 36 weeks a year. And that's an impossible task. Now, I know that some fans expect that. Some fans want every single race to be this year's Daytona 500. In fact, this is going back to a rant I had way back then. Some fans want that. And for whatever reason, NASCAR has decided to cater to those fans. And once again, we see the I guess what I would call the racing fans, the guys who, just want to turn on a TV, watch a race. Those fans being turned off for a variety of reasons. The gimmicks, you can't, when I turned on the Xfinity race to watch Dale Jr. race, all you could hear about was playoffs, 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 playoffs. It was like the fourth word they said every single time. And, they have so many things that take away the focus from the race itself. When they have something good, when they strike gold, like a Darlington throwback race or a Charlotte Roval event, the focus is taken off of the event because of all the periphery happening around it. And so I suspect this is what's going to happen here. And the worst part about this is that when those expectations, those lofty expectations by those few fans who really just want chaos every single week, when those expectations are not met, they're still not going to be pleased. They're going to have everything they want. They're going to have the most gimmicky racing ever. They're going to have the closest racing, the biggest wrecks, but it's probably still not going to meet their expectations. So that's a bit unfortunate. So that was my rant on that. That was my thoughts on that. It's going to be an interesting year next year for NASCAR. The best thing they could probably do is backpedal. They probably won't, knowing NASCAR. So it's a Hail Mary play. We'll see if it works out for them. Obviously, we're going to continue to cover it as it unfolds. So thank you guys so much for watching. This has been David Land on YouTube. If you enjoy This Week in Racing, if you enjoy motorsport content, NASCAR, IndyCar, Formula One, sports cars. I'm going to Petit Le Mans in like a couple weeks, so if you're going there, say hi. And we'll see you in the next video. Can't wait to talk about the Roval race. It's actually looking like it's going to be a lot of fun.